16 minutes since I starting to do this live streaming, and yeah, sorry that I never talked earlier because I'm not very good at talking all by myself. Yeah, especially when there are no viewers. So I hope that there are more of you guys watching me playing, especially during my live sessions, so that I have more engagements. And right now I wanted to set up the aluminium assembly process, and one of my main problems right now is that I don't have enough powers to produce more of the materials. What I need is more of the in-case steel beam to run through the both of the raw quartz miner over there up until here. This on the right side is the quartz crystal processor, and the left side is the silica processor constructor, and then over there is the SAM ore deposits, and over there there's miner. There is the bauxite miner, and I'm planning to set up somewhere over there or somewhere over here, somewhere close or somewhere in the middle here, to process aluminium. And right now my plan is to set up a ramp so that I can go down there much faster by using this explorer vehicle over here. But right now I'm not sure where should I set up the ramps. I think at the end over here. Let's set it up, starting with this ramp. This is actually quite tricky because I have to keep switching between the ramps and the foundation, because we are at the edge and I cannot link this ramp directly at the edge over here, so I have to put a foundation underneath here so that the ramp able to stick here. I can snap it over here on the sides, but not at the edge of another ramps. Let's see now. This is gonna take quite a while. During this process, it is advisable that you have jetpack crafted and equipped, as well as enough fuel, so that if you accidentally drop onto the ledge, then you are still able to recover back onto here and you wouldn't die because of the high altitude. And you may have noticed that my game's quite laggy, where the FPS drop. That is because I do not have a very fancy computer hardware setup. I'm only running off of my laptop to stream right now, I am using the OBS Live, and this game also takes quite an amount of hardware resources to play as well, even though I am not streaming. Especially when I get into this kind of area where there are a lot of 3D polygons needs to be rendered, like these trees, leaves, and all the sceneries over here. It can be very laggy. The if you were asking about the texture, the model quality, the graphics quality setting, I've already dropped them down to somewhere around very low quality, and the resolution I think somewhere in around 16 by 768 resolution. And I always play this game in windowed mode because this game you can, even when I'm not in streaming mode, I am able to multitask between surfing the website and as well as checking some information while playing this game. But most of the time I never really check about the resources while playing this game. Only after I've done with the game over here, just so that I'm able to concentrate more on this game, because multitasking is not my forte. We've done quite a while now. Still, we are, I think, 1/3 of the altitude to reach the level of this raw quartz assembly line here. And after this, I have to fetch more of the encased steel beams so that I'm able to run through conveyor belts from the raw quartz somewhere underneath the canyon over there up until the assembly line here, the constructor lines over here. also thinking of clearing some of these woods, some of these trees with chainsaw to get the woods and process them as a biomass. And with that I am able to craft the consumables, which is the filter and iodinized filter for handling radioactive, but that comes later for iodinized filter, because uranium handling any metals or radioactive substance right now is not a priority, because although I'm able to craft or make uranium cells to power up the nuclear fusion generator, which is this one nuclear power plant, but the problem is that I have to pick a place somewhere remote. Maybe I was thinking of somewhere over here, at the edge over here. That is, if I'm able to go here physically to set up a dump for the nuclear waste. Okay, great. I've set up the ramps to go down here with my Explorer vehicle, buggy, and with that I'm able to go down here much faster. But before that, I should set up a wall, because that ramps is quite a long way down, and I'm afraid that I might launch off the ledge and go down all the way to the ground there. Also, I was considering to expand my power plant. Maybe I should expand my coal power plant. I did set up a little bit of my geyser power plant on the up to 2, which is set up somewhere here, I think. Yeah, somewhere over here the geyser, only 2 geyser spots that available over there, and it provides me about 400, somewhere 400 megawatts of power, but that is still not enough. And now let's go back to our assembly line, which is to get more of the encased steel beams. I also somewhat like to travel via this um, platform over here. Mainly it is because it less taxing my overall game performance, especially with my puny little hardware setup. I am running with a Core i5 5200 HQ something, I forgot, which is a laptop based processor for i5 52 or 54, I forgot. I think it is the lowest performance of the i5 series, because usually, like for every generation for i5, i7, i9 and i3 even, they have 2 types of model. For example, an Gen i5, there are 2 types, which is 8400 and 8500, and usually the 8500 is the highest performing compared to the 8400, while the, for example, the 8500, maybe 8600 X is the unlocked type, which is you are able to overclock for extra performance, but I don't really need the extra performance from overclocking for now. And this is my fuel power plant. I set up quite an amount of industrial storage over here for each 2 section of the fuel generator here. This will house same thing like how do you put it, like a buffer and extra storage. I have about 7 oil refineries that will convert crude oils to fuel, and 3 of them on the right side over here are connected to the backup generator, backup fuel generator, because I realized that if I didn't connect these oil refineries to the backup generator, if for example I trip the fuse, if I trip the fuse for everything else and I'm not able to produce any extra fuels, if the main power plant goes down. So this is the backup power plant, which will power up this oil pump here, this one, 3 of this oil refinery, and this extra oil refinery, which is dedicated to house the fuel for this backup generator. So generator will not run out of fuel because of this dedicated oil refinery over here. And this is the fuels generated from this oil refineries. So after some time, if I have some power trips going on, 3 of these oil refineries still running on this backup power generator and still able to produce more fuels, while all of the fuel generator over here will not consume any of the fuels, while 3 of them still making more fuels to stock them up. And after quite a while, I see some of the fuels still running on top of this that will cycle through all of the fuels, going all together round and round, and then that's the time that I'm going to turn on the fuel again. I mean the power again. Now let's get more of the encased steel beams over there. I was thinking of making constructor line for close to the quartz processing, so that I don't have to run back and forth, which is a very long way. It took me about 3 to 5 minutes to go back and forth just to more of the excuse me about that just now. I am still unwell. Yeah, about the concrete assembly lines, so that I don't have to go back and forth, which is took me 3 to 5 minutes between transit to just to get more concrete if I ever run out of concrete. Yeah, I am coughing. I'm sorry about it. And by setting another concrete assembly line over there, it should minimize the time to fetch more of the concrete from this main assembly line, the basic item assembly line over here. As you can see, the terrains are not rendered very well. That is because of my laptop performance not that well to support this game. Regardless, I'm still forcing my laptop to play the game as well as streaming for you guys. But hey, I have to start somewhere, right? Now, in case steel beam should be here. One thing good about this Explorer is that I'm able to take a lot of obstacles, especially these conveyor belts laying on this floor here. It's able to climb through it compared to the normal truck, which is the sugar cubes. That is actually from the game itself. They called it sugar cubes, because it is shaped like a sugar cube. And oh, 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 oh. No, 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 no. Okay, this is bad. I have to load. Yeah, that is bad. I clip through the terrain there and goes down into underneath the pool, which I thought I wouldn't be going there anyway, but who knows. I thought that I might able to drive on top there, on top of the terrain without clipping, going through the terrain, but I didn't know. I never did that before. That was the first time, and loading through this might take quite a while. Bear with me. We are about 42 minutes in streaming already. So since I don't have any viewers, it's just like I'm a crazy guy talking all by myself, or something like almost like a podcast talking all by myself. And Nuvi, yes, Nuvi, it is me, Nuvi 6. I am not related with any kinds of Nuvi related names out there. I am entirely a different person. Nuvi 6. I think I know that. I think there are someone who uses Nuvi as well as their names or nicknames, but I am I am not that person. Nuvi and Nuvi 6 are two different kind of person, and probably asking why Nuvi, because I myself sometimes asking all by myself about someone who pick their own nicknames, why, and usually usually the reason behind it also reflects what they always do, like at the back of their minds, how they think. For me, Nuvi is um, like an anagram of noob, derivative of noob. Okay, we are loaded, and the terrains, okay, rendered correctly. I think I need to fetch the engaged steel beams, which is, sorry if you heard that. um, I'm not far off from the loading where I fall under the underworld. Another thing I need to fetch is steel pipe. I'm going to fetch about 3 of them. Means that I'm going to stock up until 500. The same thing, like maybe just 400 will suffice, because steel pipes are not as important as engaged steel beam, because I need more steel beam, encased steel beams compared to steel pipe, because encased steel beam are mainly used in um, laying down the conveyor belts and the conveyor pole, while steel pipes are mainly for the industrial storage unit, storage container, which is this, the one that you see. Yeah, I made a flip there. Barrel roll. Yeah. This is the industrial storage container. One of the nice thing about industrial storage container is that I'm able to set this kind of configuration from this side, which is I have 5 constructor of processing concrete, and then from the outer side, which is number 1 over here and number 5, and then link to the number 2 and number 3, and then number 2, 3 and 4, oh no, number 5 link to number 4, number 1 link to number 2 over here, and then number 2, 3 and 4 will be merged together and stored inside here. If I take all of this, I will gain about 1400 of concrete. You can see that both of them, from the lower floor and upper floor here, the conveyor belt will be going out simultaneously, as well as the storage from the number 1 and number 5 will be restocking the number 2 and number 4. As you can see, it is still at 100% capacity, while over here the nice effect of having this industrial storage container is that it will go up, the units go up by multiplication of 2 over here, and it will go full much faster. Now on to setting up our assembly lines for the quartz processing plant over there. Probably you also wondered why I set up quite a lot of these foundations, ramps in this manner. Mainly because I like the aesthetic of these foundations compared to laying down the buildings on the ground there. Compared to laying down on the ground there, um, by placing your buildings like the conveyor belt, the conveyor pole, and any forms of construction on top of these foundations, there are grids that were set up inside this inside one each of these foundations, and you are able to snap and align your assembly lines, the conveyor belts, and like the stackable conveyor poles, and almost everything else. You are able to stack them together and line them perfectly well, more like having yourself an OCD where I want to align them perfectly well, spaced out, even space them out well together, just like these plastic processing plants here, from the oil refineries, these fuel refineries here, and if you're doing that on the ground, I don't think you will able to line them up perfectly well together, especially the conveyor poles and the laying down the conveyor belts if you want them to perfectly lined up together. And on top over here, if on top over here is going to be the bauxite processing area. There's one slightly bigger hole, 2 by 3 I think. Yes, 2 by 3, which is the miner mark 2 for the bauxite. I do have access to miner mark 3, but I already need a turbo motor, which requires heatsink, which requires aluminium to make the heatsink, and to require aluminium I need bauxite, while to make to process bauxite I will require I'm sorry about that. To process bauxite, I will require silica, which comes from the raw quartz over here. So over here is the silica once again. Over there, on the opposite side here is the quartz crystal. And I still need to expand more of these foundations here. Yes, pretty lagi. It's because of these plants over here. That is why I rather travel via these foundations, as well as I don't have the risk of running into any enemies. Yes, also I am sorry that I may occasionally mute the mic. That is because I am coughing. I am not well right now, so that you guys, how should I put it, doesn't blow up your, I did not unintentionally blow up your speakers or damage your hearing due to my coughing. So this extra row of foundations here, so that if I were to set up the industrial storage container, I still have some space to walk or to I'm sorry about that, to have access on. Right about there. I still need to set up power pole over here to power up this all of this constructor here. The other day I watched the resource for satisfactory, like factory calculator for the satisfactory over here, and I stumbled across the what do you call it, balancer, I think, which has, for example, I have two raw quads, two quads minor over there, and my initial thinking is to have one each of the quads minor to be like quads minor 1 will be processed into raw quartz, to into quartz crystal here. Like for example, this one is silica, over there is the crystal, and with that I am unable to, with that I'm sure that there may be some raw quartz shortage, but with the balancer between both of the raw quartz, and then yeah, I will explain that later. More like you split both of the raw quartz over there, and then you set up two conveyor merger, and from that splitter we link into each of the merger over there. Yeah, maybe it's much better that I will show you during the build process instead of just talking it over here. It's just my initial plan. One, two, three, four, five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. This is the Power Pole Mark II. And the Power Pole Mark II, you can connect up to 7 at once. To me, my setup is always about 5 of these. For example, the constructor, and then another 2 were reserved to the connection between each power pole, the adjacent one. Yeah, lagi. And then finally over here, nothing more, right? Okay, that should be fine. And then I'm going to connect here, and here, connect to that power pole. This one link to the other side. Okay. Same thing for this end as well. I wonder if I'm able to lay down the conveyor splitter, because this always has been my setup over here. Oh, okay, this one still not connected yet. There, and this one goes here. Done. Okay, conveyor splitter. No, this one is merger splitter. There you go, another one here. I put in every two of the constructors here because right after the first one, after the first splitter here, there are only two extra slots that are free that going to directly into this merger over here. I mean the constructor. So with that, the third output will go back into the splitter here. You guys might be wondering why I put conveyor pole just like this one, this kind of setup, instead of just linking them directly and let the game do the just like this kind of setup. I find it kind of annoying and not that aesthetic to look at. More like I wanted this to be like as tidy as possible. Yeah, like that. I've been playing this quite a while now. Usually one session is around 2 hours, either live or my offline session. And in nowadays, oh, I ran out of the close in-case steel beams. I need to fetch more of the close in-case, fetch more of the in-case steel beams. I still need to run a series of power pole from the top here down to this quartz processing area here. And why that is the case, firstly is that I'm going to prepare also this site for future updates, which is the sand ore processing site here, as well as running through this aluminium processing site here, because also mainly due to the fact that it is quite close to the power plant, the fuel generator power plant here. Way down the hills, and I'm not sure how many fuel generator did I set up actually over there. Not sure if I'm able to count from up here. I think somewhere around 20 or 30 or maybe 40 of fuel generator here, and I'm not producing enough of this I'm not producing enough of this thing in here. Maybe I need to set up, maybe I do need to set up what do you call it, balancer. Yeah, maybe I do need to set up balancer over here. Come on, think how. Because right now over here is bottleneck, because I am running on conveyor belt Mark 4. Conveyor belt Mark 4, from the statistic, is it transport about 480 unit of materials of resources per minute, instead of Mark 5, which is about 780 resource per minute. But I require this all-clad aluminium sheet, which requires aluminium ingot and copper ingot to process. So that is why I'm trying to set up aluminium production site in this current session, if I'm allowed to. Where's the explorer over here? Yeah, over here. Yeah, I had to mute because I had to cook. Where were we? About those um, big players, the professionals who got into the games or the industries for quite a while now, where they are able to like see you, they are able to watch you in a fraction of a second and then give you a headshot, not giving you any kind of like breather or something else, and then yeah, that's the kind of stuff that kind of stressful where you always dies or even after about oh okay, hold on, let me turn up the volume. I'm sorry, I didn't see that chat. I hope that you are able to see that. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Outer West one. Um, I didn't see your chat. Your chat was around 30 minutes ago. I guess I was really into my rants or my some nonsense types of talkings here. Um, where were we about the those kind of professional players not giving you a breather of like giving you like maybe 5 minutes into the game like trying to enjoy the games, although you wanted to maybe um how should I say it, experience that kind of um that kind of environment where how and then usually those kind of players and they just going to mock you up and saying that this guy is a noob, man, and then you got down and everything else, nothing much you can see and nothing much you can do about that, and then eventually you have to abandon the game and leave the session, um, not because of that not because that not because you are born noob, although you are able to, we can improve however over time, but with that kind of things means that usually is like a demotivations of playing those kind of games already, because yeah, you know, you just got into the games and then suddenly got mocked by more professional players. Of course, we start somewhere else from the ground up. We humans do start from being an infant and then being a baby. We walk on fours and eventually we started to learn how to walk on our two legs and how we runs and those kind of stuffs. Yeah, and still no viewers. I'm not sure about the YouTube side. I am actually Okay, right now I've turned up the volume for the game. The the usual settings were minus 30 decibels. Right now I've turned up the game volume up until minus 20 decibels, while the volume for the microphone is originally minus 20 decibels. Right now it is minus 10 decibels. I hope you guys able to hear me clearly but not too loud. If you were, please turn down your volumes. And I don't have enough iron rods right now to set up the conveyor pole. I hope I have another extra stock. And yeah, that noise just now, I don't have any conveyor iron rod over here right now. I have to go back and fetch more of the iron rod. Such inconvenience. And that sound is actually I ran out of fuel. Not enough fuel to keep up the fuel generator up and running, because right now I still have bottleneck. The bottleneck were actually is at the conveyor belt Mark 4, because conveyor belt Mark 4 only able to transfer up about 480 resource per minute, and I have two of the oil pumps merged together into a single conveyor belt. Into a single conveyor belt, and that create and the I believe from both of the oil pumps I should able to generate up until around 700 something ish resource per unit, which is the crude oils. And with the conveyor belt Mark 4 only about 480 crude oils limited transferred, and that would result in not enough resources to be transferred into the oil refinery to make more fuels. I think I have to reroute the extra oil pumps to bypass into the extra oil refineries. I'm not sure if I have extra in case steel beams. Let's see now. How much do I still have? Yes, I still have a lot. I still have a lot, but what I'm lacking in right now is iron rods to erect a conveyor pole, because these conveyor belts you cannot lay them down without any conveyor pole, unless I use the stacking type of the conveyor pole, stackable conveyor pole, but that one also requires iron rods. How much how many should I fetch? Maybe somewhere close around 300, 400 will suffice. I am on 1 hour and 36 minutes into the streaming right now, and I'm still not close into setting up the aluminum processing yet. I still need to have an extra copper deposits and then ship into the area of the bauxite area. We'll scan them later after I've set up the assembler. I think it is the assembler to set it up, or the aluminum ingots, and then another assembler to make another all clad aluminum sheets. No views, no viewer so far yet, only one, but I didn't see the chat that he asked me to turn up the volume. I'm not sure which volume. Is it either the microphone volume or the game volume? But I turned up both anyways by 10 decibels. I hope that that person didn't imply that I am just ignoring anyone else. It's just that I'm not sure. Is it that my connection having issues where the chat I am running the stream off on both on YouTube and Twitch right now, but the message apparently, the text apparently coming from Twitch, but it doesn't appear on the unified chat. I am using Mob Crush. One of the nice thing about Mob Crush is that you are able to stream directly into Mob Crush server, and then those live stream will be how do you say, will be spread into any link account that you have. For example, I have Twitch and YouTube. With Mob Crush, you link both Twitch and YouTube into your Mob Crush account by uploading into the Mob Crush server. The Mob Crush itself will split those bandwidth into both YouTube and Twitch, and you are able to stream your game concurrently. And for me, YouTube and Twitch, Mob Crush do support for another two, which is Facebook and Mixer, but I haven't registered for Mixer yet. I was thinking to register for Mixer to have more exposure of my live streaming over here, but I'm just a small time online streamer. I do like to stream my games rather than pre-record and edit my videos, because it's quite tedious to record these videos, because it requires a lot of storage. I don't have a lot of storage to do the editing and a lot of those stuffs. but hopefully in the future I'm able to do it. But right now I still need to have a lot of your supports, your viewer supports to support me. Maybe I'll reconsider about having a pre-record, but for now, um, I'm not really into that kind of. I'm not really that kind of not into that kind of content yet. Mainly is also because I am still new into this kind of industry. Hopefully I am able to get support from you guys. Yeah, more conveyor belts here. There you go, this part is done. Now to stretch this all the way back here. And then I'm going to try out to set up a balancer that I saw on the online. Maybe I think it was last night where I saw the balancer setup. We'll see. We'll see how. Okay, nice. We okay. Conveyor splitter and merger. I was thinking to put merger over here and then another splitter here, but first I need to extend this conveyor lift here. Over here, I think should be enough. Oops. And then a wall. then I think um, splitter, I think. Let's see now, splitter. Here and here. Seems like I'm unable to link to there. It is possible, but quite tricky. There you go. Another one here. And then I was thinking the splitter should be over here. I mean the merger. And another one over here. I was thinking of using the stackable pole, which is this. Over here, let's see now. Oh, that seems ugly, but yeah, that seems ugly. Let's try the conveyor lift. So there you have it. I suppose this is the balancer. And now to link this, into the miner over here. Now for the power pole. I'm thinking to set up something like this, just a crude way. Can I make it? Yeah, almost. And goes here. One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. There are maximum range of about 11 or 12 blocks of these foundations before you will get a warning that the wire placement is too long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this one. And I think the maximum is about 11 or 12, but I usually go about 10 by maximum. But if I were required, I will go somewhere around 11 or 12, or maybe 8 or 7, depends on my setup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then here, and this one to there, and now what's left is to route or route the power through the slope, the ramp over there. How many concretes that I have right now? I have 700. Almost there. Okay, one more. There. Maybe I'm not sure. Where should I set up the pole? Over here by this ledge, or by this ledge? first taking off by this ledge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can I link it? Yes, I can. Oh, I cannot. Oh well. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Was it 10 blocks already? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here, I think. Now to set up to connect to the assembly line here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 3. Oh, not enough cable. Do I have enough wire? Wire, yes, I have 400 of wires. Where's my explorer? Okay, that should be enough. On second thought, I should bring the explorer here, because I'm gonna need to go up all the way to the ramps there. And done. Okay, need to reserve a little bit of my concrete because power poles need some concretes. Oops, out of fuel. I have 300 more inside this vehicle, and I have 37 more in my bag, and I need to restock more of the fuel now. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. Then here. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, and this one. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, and this one. And another one at the top here. There. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. Here. Maybe I just should extend up until here. With that, I would require more concrete. I am now 5 minutes to 2 hours of live stream, of continuous live stream. Note that somewhere in about 1 hour and 10 minutes mark of live stream, or I think around 40 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago, I had to reload the game because I fell down into the underworld and kind of died. With that, I am unable, I'm sure that the crates will appear in the underworld, and we are unable to retrieve it anyway. So it's much better to just reload the game instead of trying to recover the crates. And let's see now if our production here is already good. Well, to me, I am still wanting to continue on this production, although I have no power running out of this main fuel generator here. They consume nothing. With that, I am able to restock more of these fuels, but I'm not sure what's the amount of the fuels generated already. Here I think no. Here. Oh. Okay. I think I know where the bottleneck are. It is, I think, here, because I didn't set up the conveyor belt for the upper floor, and thus it will create bottleneck for this here. Yes, bottleneck over there, and thus the fuel generators after that bottleneck point did not receive enough fuels um, to sustain itself. Now let's try to power up to reset the fuse, and we'll see. We'll see about the power consumption and the fuel production line over here. There, the capacity is 7 gigawatts. I'm not sure about the fuel production because each one of these, I'm not sure about the consumption. I think somewhere around 5 seconds each. If we divide by 5, 60 seconds is 1 minute. 5 seconds for one fuel consumption. That will take about 15 each, I think. 15, no, not 15, 14 per minute. Yeah, somewhere about, no, it's not 14, 12 per minute. 5 by 1, 10, 5 by 1 is 10, 5 seconds, 60, 10, 12, yes, it is 12 per minute. I'm not sure about the production that I have. I hope it is enough. What should I take? Cable? Oh yeah, I just remembered. Cable and more of this concrete. Do I have enough iron rods? Yes, I have enough iron rods, but I only need more cables. I'll take 4 slots. I'll just take all of them. Now, how should I set up my concrete production site? How many constructors should I set up? Maybe somewhere around 10 or 20 of those concrete constructor. Because somewhere there is close to the raw quartz processing area there. I think there is a limestone deposits, not cluster, pure limestone deposits. That that pad with minor Mark II, I think would net me around somewhere around 300 or 480 limestones per minute. That is without overclocking, and we hit the 2 hours mark, and I'm going to give an extra 30 minutes on the live stream here. I've been talking all by myself without any of you guys watching. I'm not sure about the YouTube side. I don't think so yet. There are no chats coming up from the YouTube side as well. I am using the Mob Crush Unified Chat to see if there's any chats from you guys, but no, not yet. And extended. Ooh, why? I'm pretty sure that is all due to the fact that my laptop is struggling with the performance right now. Ooh, again. Ooh, I'm in the air. Okay. I think I am reaching the limit of my gameplay already. I kept getting diagonal type of placement for these blocks, for the foundations. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hmm? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here. One, two. Let's extend up all the way over there. One good thing about the Satisfactory is that since there are a lot of power consumption and the power generators, in the real life you would typically require a very thick cable already for the industrial purpose, and then you would need a generator 3-phase type of power lines and power converters for the industrial usage. and like I said earlier, very thick cable depending on the application, because of the high amperage or high current deliveries for each one of the manufacturers, depending on their types, of course, may go up until maybe 10 amps or 100 amps depending. While over here, well, in the main lines, somewhere well past the space elevator over there, already consume somewhere around megawatts, and I don't know how well that's going to translate to one. For me, I am living in the 240 volts. 1 amp should translate to 240 watts, and 10 amps is kilowatts. That will be about 1000 amps already. Yes, 1000 amps. That's pretty huge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1 gigawatts of power consumption, and I'm generating about 7 gigawatts in this game. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 7 gigawatts. That's quite a lot, and I'm not sure how, if in the real world, if any place would have 7 gigawatts of power. Maybe somewhere in the mega cities like New York or something will use up until 10 gigawatts or something. I do not know. I never researched about that, but think about it. That huge amount of power requires a very thick cable, because it depends because I know a little bit of DC, direct current, and if we are talking about alternating current, AC, for example, in I'm going down here so that I'm able to make the ramps much easier here. If we use 16 gauge 16 AWG type of wire, which is quite thick, also not that easy to come by in my area here on where I live, at least. For the DC, which is direct current, that will be about the capacity for that wire is somewhere around 20 amps or 30 amps, I forgot, but it depends. It's just about the amps actually that makes that the wire able to deliver such demands for the current needed for that application. 16 gauge typically used somewhere in usually used in in remote control cars, in higher performing remote control cars, especially drones, because drones usually, some drones like the racing type of drones, they use maybe like 16 gauge or 14 gauge type of wire, which is very thick, because the motor that's running them requires the motors is somewhere around 5500 kilowatt type of motor, which is a very high RPM type. And with that, I'm not sure about the current going through them. I'm not very sure, and I am not very keen on this type of things. So if that 16 gauge if that 16 gauge able to deliver up until somewhere around 20 amps maximum, if we are talking about direct current, which is somewhere around 12 volt, running with let's say for example a 3D printer. I do have 3D printers. The heated bed requires about 10 to 15 amps for 12 volts. That will means that 12 volt times by 10 equals 120 watt of power delivered through that wire alone, which is the 16 gauge. But if we are talking about alternating current, which is AC, it might able to withstand up until 10 amps or more. But I think, let's say just 20 amps, means that with 16 gauge of wire running on this alternating current. I'm sorry, I am pretty much disoriented already from trying to think and multitasking, from making these ramps down all the way up until there, so that I'm able to route the power lines. How should I put it? 240 volts where I live in right now. The mains wire, the mains voltage is 240 volts on my area. Times by 20, that will equal around how much? 10 amps is 200 and 2400. Hold on. Let me slowly calculate. While thinking and making these ramps over here is no easy feat. $240 times 2 and then times 10, 240, 480 watts, and then times by 10 for 20 amps. That will equal close to 5,000 watt, which is 5 kilowatts of power able to be delivered via 16 gauge wire, if we are talking about alternating current. But no, I don't. Maybe I'm wrong over here, because first things first, I am not a qualified or certified electrician, and if so, if any of you guys watching this and hearing this one man talk show about this current deliveries between direct current and alternating current of a 16 gauge wire, maybe leave them in the comments below. What is the capacity for 16 gauge wire to deliver? How many watts or how many amps it can deliver for AC current? AC type of voltage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 over here. Lagging. Okay. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Should I have cable and connect that to there. Maybe I can take a shortcut, go over there and drop my explorer here, go there. Maybe. And then hopefully my explorer, I don't think that the explorer will be destroyed though. I don't think so anyway. It's going to be a good experiment anyway. Oops. Okay. Luckily I have jetpack so that I can land safely, because if I were to be in the explorer while falling from that height, I would have died. Yeah, so basically I am able to use this kind of shortcut a little bit. I think I'm going back to the hub and save the game, and this is where I think I should end my live stream already. Don't have any viewers, but regardless I'm going to live stream again somewhere in the future. I'm not sure when. So it has been me alone talking without any chats from any viewers, only one, which is about asking to bring up the audio, but I'm not sure which audio he was talking about, either the microphone audio or the game audio, I'm not sure, but regardless I increased by 10 decibels for both, and I read somewhere that the audio levels that you will be hearing or transmitted through your speakers will be double when 10 decibels were boosted from the audio system, from the source. And if you guys wanted to see me build more of the Satisfactory, do follow me in twitch.tv I think /Nuvi6, and do subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, Nuvi6. Both are the same name, Nuvi6, NOOVIE is number 6, Nuvi6. This will not be the end of the stream, because to set up the aluminium production over there will require more than just 2 hours, maybe 5 to 8 hours I think, to set up everything, because I need to go back and forth for the raw resources, especially the iron rods, constructors raw resource, concretes for these things here, the foundations. So I still need them. And yes, this character and this character standing over here is the offline characters. when I don't have any internet. I sometimes play when when I don't have any internet and not in live streaming. And this character, which is the Nuvi 6 character, will be sitting here and I will be saving this game. So do share this video if you like it. Do follow me, subscribe, Twitch and YouTube alike, both are the same, Nuvi 6 again. And yeah, have a good day. I will see you next time.